Chris Ballard spoke to the media today, and we're going to be reacting to it on episode 19 of Colts Unplugged Pod. I am one of your hosts, Profan Logan, joined by my co-host is Ati Logan. What's going on, my guy? Man, we got a doozy of a pod to get into today.
I know, right? What's up, baby? What's up, Colts Nation? Make sure, guys, hit that like and subscribe button if you are a huge Colts
Yes.
fan just like us. We post consistently on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. So give us a like and follow. Um, yeah, what a day. I tuned in. Thankfully, I worked from home today. Popped that baby on my monitor while I was working. Listened to the whole thing. Got me through the morning. Got to write my thoughts down on my notes app on my iPhone, getting ready for this pod. So I'm fucking ready to go, baby. Let's talk about some CB.
So, first things first, I wanted to start it off and ask you. I think you listened to it a little bit before I did because you were listening to it live. I listened to it on my lunch break. What were your first initial raw thoughts just as a whole? And was there anything that stuck out for you that Ballard talked
Yeah.
about?
This motherfucker, Chris Ballard, just sucked me right back in. As soon as I thought I was done with this motherfucker, I'm just like, fuck, I'm back in, baby. You're 9. No, I
Don't let
shouldn't
him
be.
do it, Addy.
No, I
Don't let
shouldn't
him
be.
do it.
I'm sorry, but this was a completely different thing. And I'm still out on
Mhm.
Ballard. I still don't want him here, but this gave me a little bit of like sliver of hope. It was a
Uh-huh.
completely different press conference. Usually it's we like our guys, we're all in house, we keep it in house, we continue to extend the players that we've drafted, X, Y, or Z. This was completely different. He acknowledged I failed. And he said that multiple times. I failed. I need to be taking, the approach that I've taken for the last couple of years isn't right, is essentially what he said,
Mhm.
meaning the whole just rely on the draft, don't bring in key free agents. Um, and then don't bring in competition for your already in-house guys. He was just like, I failed in that regard. And it's, he kept talking about how he's a hard-headed guy, he's a stubborn guy, and he really took this time while he was sick to just kind of reevaluate. And he was disappointed, obviously, but he really took it on the chin today and was like, I mean, he said I failed and passed, but like at least today he's like, my approach was completely wrong, which he's never said in the past. He's always a big believer in what he says. He's stubborn headed in that mindset. So it was a little bit refreshing to see. Like I said earlier, that motherfucker sucked me right back in, even though he shouldn't. So, but at least as a fan, I want him to do well, because if he does well, our team does well. So
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I had mixed emotions while I was watching it only because, like you mentioned, this is year 9, right, for Chris Ballard. And I think he's sort of saving face a little bit because he
hmm
has to, right? What's he going to do, come in and say, "No, everything's fine. We're good. We like our guys." He's been getting roasted for the last year and a half on social media and in the Colts local market, in the national market, right?
yep.
From all types of media personalities. So, he had to say something. I mean, he was going to have to address it. He was going to have to take it on the chin somewhere. I just it for me it falls on deaf ears just a little bit because of this being year 9. Now, I will say things that I did like. I did like that he addressed specifically where he failed. That tells me that he at least has somewhat of a plan going into this offseason of where he would like to get better. And he mentioned specifically the area of him not closing on major free agent signings. That was really good to hear. It was cool to hear him take accountability there because that's something that we haven't seen much of this year in the Colts locker room, in the Colts front office, right? Is accountability. So it was good to hear him take some accountability there. I think the thing that stuck out to me most though was that there's still major dysfunction in this Colts locker room and in the Colts front office. I put out a tweet earlier that took off again, and it
Yeah.
was basically I put the two quotes side by side. Shane Steichen was asked at the end of the year, how close he feels that the Colts are as a team, and he said, "I think we're really close, right? I think we're pretty close." And Chris Ballard opened up this press conference by basically saying, "We're not close. We're not close at all."
Yeah.
And he's like close as losing by one play in the Super Bowl, right? So yes, it was good to hear Chris say that and take accountability, but it did highlight some of the areas of dysfunction. You've got Jim Irsay saying that they're close. You've got Shane Steichen saying that they're close. And then you've got Chris Ballard saying we're not close at all. So that was definitely the thing that stuck out like a sore thumb to me. But
Yeah.
overall, I agree with you. I think the sentiment of Chris Ballard was good in the fact that he did take accountability, he took responsibility, and he did provide Colts Nation with a at least a potential plan of what he's going to do going into this offseason,
Yeah.
moving forward. Yeah.
And that tweet was great it was great to see, like your tweet, 'cause I didn't even think about it. I didn't even put two and two together. Completely forgot about the fact that Shane Steichen literally said, "Hey, we're really close." Part of me is like, part of me though is because it is as a head coach, like you can't come up to the stadium really and say like, "Oh, like we're not close at all whatsoever." I just feel like it might give like a bad message to the team, but at the same time, it's also like I completely agree with you where there is definitely some disconnect, and Chris Ballard definitely talked about it because I think one of the reporters, it might have been James Boyd, asked him like, "Did you talk to Shane about some of his media talk and specifically to the AR benching, the AR back spasm that he's called soreness?" And Chris Ballard was like, "Yeah, Shane and I talked, and at the end of the day, he goes, you, the media, are gonna figure it out. Like what like we're gonna figure it out whatever the heck we're hiding. So we might as well just be open and honest at the end of the day." And I think hopefully that conversation came after the fact that Shane Steichen already said, "Hey, we're pretty close," which is what I hope happened. But it
Yeah.
was good to see. It was good to see all the concerns that we've had this short off season and a couple of weeks towards the end of the season kind of being addressed in this presser because I feel like it never really was in previous years. It was always he was really stubborn. We like our guys. We're gonna re-sign in-house, keep extending players in-house, not bring in any competition, not touch free agency, learn to draft our guys, which I thought was interesting. Another piece that I thought was pretty interesting too is James Boyd, and I feel like James Boyd kind of got under Chris Ballard's skin. Like Chris Ballard
Oh, he
asked him a couple
did.
of times, like, "Yeah,"
He
he's like,
did.
"Do you have kids?" Like as an example to one of his questions and stuff like that. But Chris Ballard was asked like, "Hey, why do you deserve like a ninth year?" Essentially, and you could tell.
Great question.
Yes, it was great.
Self-assessment question, right? I love the
Yes,
question. Yeah.
and you could tell Chris was a little uneasy. Like I wanted to tweet like saying Chris almost looks a little anxious with like some of his hand movements, the Dasani water sips and stuff like that.
Down in the
Just
waters.
yeah, but at the end of the day, it was like he said, like we did a lot of good. Essentially, like he deserved. There was a lot of good that they did in their first couple of years. They have a lot of key starters that were drafted in like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round. Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed as an example. But still, like at the end of the day, Colts fans, it is year 9, and so at the end of the day, he can talk all the talk he wants to talk. Now it needs to be put into action. Really, at the end of the day.
And to that point, I agree with you. I think that's where I would put Ballard as a GM. I don't think he's been the worst GM in the NFL, but here's the thing. When did the standard for the Indianapolis Colts become pretty good? Or for
Yeah.
example, there was a huge discussion that I had in one of my group chats today about the Chris Ballard press conference, and it was the part where Chris Ballard said, "We've done pretty well in the draft," and I said, I mean, that's a fair assessment. He's done pretty well or decent, right? I would use the word decent in the draft in his time here.
Yeah.
But when did the standard become just a decent drafter or he's doing a pretty good job, right? Obviously pretty good or pretty well or decent, those aren't words that you really want to be synonymous with you as a person or a franchise if you are trying to compete for championships, for division titles, for playoff appearances because as it's been well documented as Ballard opened up with, he hasn't won anything since he's been here, right?
Yep.
And so that's my problem with it is I think Chris Ballard is very similar to Jim Irsay in the way actually where He's got a pretty big ego and he addressed it. He said he's stubborn, he's hard-headed. He feels like he has a certain way of doing things and he wants to prove himself right. And I think that gets in his way
Yeah.
of being a GM sometimes. Being a GM, you got to really be flexible and you have to respect the evolution of the game around you. And you have to respect what the rest of the league is doing as well. And I think Ballard, he came in day one as the Colts GM, 8 years ago, and said, I'm going to do things my way, and that's it. And I think he's realizing that in this ninth season, finally, hopefully, who knows,
Mm-hmm.
but in this ninth season, he's finally realizing, oh, I might have to adapt a little bit. I might have to grow. I might have to put my ego to the side or my philosophy to the side for a
Yeah.
second for the better of this team.
Yeah. What I completely agree, because at the end of the day, it's what being a decent drafter, the way you output that in regards to results is exactly what you mentioned. It comes out in wins, in division titles, in AFC, championship appearances and Super Bowl
Right.
appearances and wins. And at the end of the day, it's like you look at his record, he's 60 and 60 whatever. Like he has a negative win record. He's never won the division. Like he's made the playoff twice. Won Did he even win one? I don't know if he's won one. I think one.
He
He won
won
one.
one game and it was with Andrew Luck, who's not his it wasn't a guy he drafted, right? Andrew Luck was
Exactly.
already there. Yeah. So
Exactly.
I mean,
That's another thing I kind of wanted to pivot to as well is, you know, they talked about, I think someone asked Chris Ballard as well, like what is the standard and what are you hoping for in regards to like what are you trying to achieve to retain your job next season? Because Chris Ballard said, right, like they're not close this season, and he acknowledged they're not close. So what is the standard for Chris Ballard? Is it,
right.
hey, we're gonna try to win the division and then you retain your job, or is it, hey, Jim Irsay says you're not close, you can go 9-8 again, and then you can retain your job? Like, what is the standard at this point? Because if you do a completely different, or if you utilize a completely different philosophy, you still draft well, but then you bring in these big name free agents, and let's say they flop, and you end up being 8-9 again. Does that mean you keep your job? Because you just mentioned in your press conference that you're not close. Like, how does Jim Irsay view this? That's a big concern of mine, because I feel like there's no real like answer to that right
Have
now.
you have you heard about the uh the method, I guess, of it's happened a couple times if you look across the NFL. Have you heard about the method where a GM will or a GM or a an owner rather will come out and tell a GM, "Hey, this is what we need out of this team this season, like this specific goal, or else like we're gonna have to move on to somebody else."
Mm-hmm.
I think that's potentially, hopefully. I mean, we gotta hope that that's the conversation that's been had already in private between Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard. There has to be that conversation. Hey, Chris, if you do not make the playoffs this year, hey, Chris, if you don't win the AFC South next year, I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do to defend you anymore. We have to move in a different direction. I think at this point, 9 seasons in with zero results, I mean it's past due time to
I
give Chris Ballard an ultimatum. I hope Jim Irsay has. I hope they've had this conversation in private, because if not, man, it sets a really bad standard. We're talking. You mentioned it last episode. We're talking Browns level bad. We're talking, old Lions level bad. Not new Lions,
Jets
old
level
Lions level
bad.
bad. Jets level bad, right? Giants level bad. We're talking that is going to be the territory the Colts are embarking on if they just continue to allow this culture and this state of mediocrity and this dysfunction within the organization to continue to build. So,
Yeah.
look, man, I hope Ursay and Ballard have had that conversation. If it was me, if I'm Ursay, that's what I'm telling them straight up. I'm saying, hey, Chris, I love you like a brother, but we got to win the AFC South and we got to make the playoffs, brother. Like if we don't do that, I can't keep you. There's nothing I can
I
do. My hands are
I
tied.
100% agree, but all we know right now, because Chris Ballard was asked that similar question, like, what do you need to do this season to retain your job? Like, what did you and Ursay talk about? And he said, Ursay said 2 words, fix it. And I hope there's a lot more behind the scene, but I think fix it really speaks a large volume in regards to like just fix the whole thing. I think that means make the playoffs. I think that means win the division. I hope that means that because even Chris Ballard said Jim
Yeah.
Irsay is all about winning. He wants to win at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
I was going to ask you this too, Addy. I think this is a really important point because as Colts fans, we are used to, at least, the ones who went through the Manning era and the Luck era, right? As older Colts fans, we are used to success and we're used to winning, right?
Hmm.
My question to you is realistically, like try to put Colts bias aside, and I know it's hard. I happens to me all the time too. But putting Colts bias aside, do you genuinely feel like it's possible for Ballard to turn it around so much as to win the AFC South next year and make the playoffs? Do you think there's a legitimate path forward that he could do that? And if so, what do you think he would need to do? Like realistically, not like crazy aspirations wise. Like, what do you realistically think he needs to do?
I think the optimist in me says that, yeah, there's a realistic path, but at the end of the day, a lot has to go right. Like, one, Ballard has to change his philosophy completely. Two, you got to bring in the right guys to compete with the people in there because right now everyone's too comfortable per Ballard's message. Three, your quarterback, who's been extremely inconsistent over these first 2 seasons and not as healthy, needs to stay healthy and take the next step and be consistent. And then four, your coach, who regressed this season, needs
Yeah.
to go back to his year one form, not only in regards to play calling, but also in regards to the media. So the optimist in me says, yeah, Chris Ballard should be able to, or can be able to turn this around
Mm-hmm.
if like if he's able to figure this out. But at the end of the day, you're betting against 4 or 5 things that need to go in the right direction. You hired the right defensive coordinator as well. I missed out on that. On top of adding competition on the defensive side of the ball and drafting correctly and bringing in the right free agents. So it's like it's hard. It's really difficult, and that's the life of a GM. Is you're constructing a team. You have all these issues to worry about, and it all comes on you at the end of the day. Like if
Yeah.
all the stuff to bear, but you signed up for it. Like,
I would argue, so I agree with you completely, but I would argue that this sounds crazy. It's going to sound absurd, but I would argue that Chris Ballard, he has as hard of a job to turn around the 8 and 9 Colts to be a division winner, to be a playoff team. I think he might have as difficult of a job as someone like whoever the Titans are going to hire as their GM,
yeah,
because I think it is a farce. I do think it's a farce, and that the Colts, they gave fans that weird expectation this year towards the end that they might be a team that could compete. But if you go back and you really look at the wins they had, it was not good. They
they're all
didn't
one
beat any
score.
teams. They beat no good teams, right? They when they did beat those teams, they barely won. They had the lowest, like I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they had one of the lowest, if not the lowest, um, point differentials.
Point differential. Yep.
Yes, in the NFL last
Yep.
season when they
They couldn't
on the games
tackle.
that they won
If we're
exactly.
talking about stats.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. I think he has just as hard of a job, in my opinion, as someone that needs to turn around like a worst to first type of situation.
Yeah.
Because, dude, I'm telling you, the Colts are further. I like that he acknowledged it, but the Colts are further than 8 and 9, in my opinion.
It.
The 8 and 9 looks very deceiving. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's not other people's 8 and 9. It's not a Cardinal. It's not an Arizona Cardinals, like 8 and 9 or something like that, or like a one of those teams that had some good games and battled in a tough division this year. It's not. It's not
No,
one of
it's
those
not.
8 and 9s. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. It feels like a
So
team that's closer to like 4-13, right,
I-
than nine and
I'm
eight
telling you,
at the end of
I'm
the
telling
day.
you, a
And
couple plays go this way, a couple plays go that way. Colts could have easily been like 5-12 or 4-13 this year, man. It's
yeah,
insane. It's absolutely
yeah,
insane.
and that's something I didn't even think about too. Like adding to everything that needs to go right. Like your division. Granted, your division is pretty ass. Like you could have won it this season. You lost to Houston by a combined 5 points, and you should have
I
won
mean,
it this season.
you got two teams in your division picking in the top 5, if I'm not
But
mistaken,
that's
correct? Yeah,
exactly. But that's my
yeah,
point too. Is like this division, I feel like, and we said this last year, so I feel like it's just like we just keep saying it every single season, but this division, like realistically, could get better. So like the door's closing. Like you have the
Yeah,
Titans that have the number one overall pick. You have the Jags that just completely fired everyone, their head coach and whatnot, and you still have Trevor Lawrence who. Obviously, may have paid too early, but I think with the right coach, you bring in Ben Johnson. Like that's a team that's competing with the Texans, right, for the league. Like obviously the Texans regressed a little bit, but
they
a lot of it is
regressed.
injury
Yeah,
related.
Texans regressed, guys. Like it's not
Yeah.
like the Colts got blown out or manhandled by the Texans. Addie and I both talked about it actually on our personal pages many times in the offseason. We felt like the Texans had an opportunity or a chance to regress this year, and they did.
Yeah.
It was
Listen, if the
I thought it
Colts
was going to be hard for CJ Stroud to keep up the level of play that he had last year, and we were exactly right.
if the Colts, let's say the Colts beat the Packers as an example, and let's say they beat the Broncos as an example, the Colts win that division. Or
No,
let's say the
yeah,
Colts beat the
yeah.
Texans twice because they lost by 5 points combined in 2 games. The Colts win that division. Like that's how close this was. This division is really bad. My point is that this window is closing because all these injured players for the Texans are going to come back. They're going to figure
Yep.
out how to draft interior offensive linemen, which is their biggest issue. The Titans have the number one overall pick. The Jags have a top 5 pick as well as Trevor Lawrence and a new coaching staff. Hopefully another offensive coaching
And
staff
a
probably.
and a budding star wide receiver in
Yes.
Brian
We do
Thomas
with
Jr.
Brian
Yeah,
Thomas Jr. It's a new AJ
yeah.
Brown for the next,
He's a
20 years, not 20 years, 10
dog,
years.
certified dog.
Certified dog. He is, bro. I
Yeah.
wanted him so bad on Indy, but hey, we got the best freaking pass rusher in the draft. I love Eli too. I still think we got the best pass rusher in the draft. I'm just making fun of CB, but
So speaking on that, I wanted to dive into a little bit more on the question that I asked you earlier with Ballard.
yeah,
When it comes to AR, I thought that was another big point in the press conference that stood out to me is when Ballard talked about not giving his stamp of approval
yeah,
on Anthony Richardson. So he did not commit to him being the starter next year. Number one, I will say I think I love that. I think AR needs competition. Anthony Richardson needs competition. It was very
I agree.
clear that he needs that to motivate him this year. Number two, I really, really hope that Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, Jim Irsay get together in a room and say, we are not going to pick up a 38 or 39-year-old unathletic, aging quarterback
Wait, Logan, you're telling me you don't want
to
Kirk
back him
Cousins?
up.
You don't want Kirk Cousins on a $37 million deal?
No! You
Come
keep
on.
Kirk Cousins a million miles away from Indianapolis, Indiana. I
I
swear to
agree.
God.
I agree.
No, man. So, what I was going to ask you, though, is I've got a couple people in mind. I want to hear from you. It sounds like Ballard is pretty set on bringing in some legitimate competition for Anthony Richardson who can actually maybe strike a little bit of competitive fear into him to elevate his game potentially. Who
Yeah.
do you think are some potential targets that would mesh well with that aren't like leaps and bounds better than Anthony Richardson, but could sort of keep him on his toes and compete for that starting job?
Yeah. I will say, I still believe in Anthony Richardson to be our
Mhm.
quarterback one, but I'm really happy that Chris Ballard didn't commit to that and said that he
Yes.
literally said like he needs
He didn't earn it.
competition.
He
He
didn't
didn't
earn
earn
it
it.
this year. He did not.
He's,
Yeah.
and he said their biggest thing is he needs to stay healthy, which he hasn't shown he's been able to play 17 games on top of not being consistent enough. He said there's
Loved
bright
that
spots.
answer.
We'd love to
Loved
see
that
it. And that
answer.
was I loved it. I felt like we got a sense
Mhm.
of actually like truth or which we hadn't gotten on the entire season. For me, it's a healthy balance. You got to find someone that can actually take over the franchise. God forbid AR doesn't work and is young enough to be able to do so. And you don't have to turn around this playbook that's designed for Anthony Richardson, in my
Yes.
opinion. So I
Yeah.
agree with you. I don't want to bring in Joe Flacco again. I don't want to bring in a Kirk Cousins. I don't want to bring in like an older vet that we know has no future here. I want to bring someone that has
You don't
future
want
here.
Matt Ryan to come out of retirement
Yeah,
and give
right?
it another go?
Right? I have one name for you. I have one name. I can't think of anyone else that would be a better fit. I think it's Justin Fields. You got to bring Justin Fields into
Boom.
Indy. Boom.
This
He's
we
20.
are absolutely in agreement on that, my friend.
Exactly. He's 26 years old. He led the Steelers to a 4-2 record. Now, I'm not a huge Fields fan. I talk a lot of shit to all my Bears friends when they had Justin Fields, but but it's a similar play style. He's 26. He's a little bit more accurate right now. I don't think the upside is as high as Anthony Richardson, but I think he has a solid baseline and a solid floor where you can compete with Anthony Richardson for the starting job and potentially the franchise. And he's only costing $10 million this season versus some other, quarterbacks that are a little bit older that I just don't even want to target at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
I think the other name that, this is assuming whatever happens in the playoffs for the Vikings, but if the Vikings do decide to move on from Sam Darnold to give the keys over to JJ McCarthy, I think Sam Darnold is another name that's being kind of tossed around. But I
Can
I
I
agree with
challenge you
you.
on that?
No,
Can I
no,
challenge you on that?
I personally don't want Sam Darnold.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
just
good.
saying
Good,
I'm just saying
good,
I think that's a
good.
name that's been tossed in the ring. I personally am in agreement with you actually. I think Justin Fields, he fits the bill. He's a guy that can come in. He's been a starter in this league. He's now considered a veteran. He still, I think, has a little bit of upside that could be tapped into. I do believe that at
Yeah,
26, especially when
agreed.
you see guys like Baker Mayfield and Sam
Sam
Darnold
Darnold,
and Geno Smith, right? Like reviving their
Ryan
careers.
Tannehill with the Titans for a
Exactly.
couple of
There's
years.
plenty of examples of guys reviving their career post, 25, 26, 27 years old. So I think Fields, if put in a good system and put into a system where it is designed around his abilities, I do legitimately think he could be one of those guys that could
My
have a revival of his career. So I think that would be good for Anthony Richardson to push him and push him. And
Yeah,
here's the biggest kicker for me. Justin Fields has shown the ability to be healthy. I
yeah.
will say that for extended stretches of time. He's had a couple injuries here and there, as most running quarterbacks are going to have from time to time, but he has shown the ability to be healthier than Anthony Richardson. He
Even
doesn't
with the
take as
big
many
hits
huge
he takes.
shots. So,
Yeah, exactly. I will say my only concern with Justin Fields and bringing in Justin Fields is I'm sure Justin Fields wants a starting role somewhere. He was 4-2 with the Steelers the first 6 games of the season. I'm sure teams are going to look at him and be like, hey, come here and actually start for us rather than competing essentially for a starting role. So I could see that being an issue and Justin Fields being like, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, it's not like we're saying, no, Justin Fields, you're not going to get a starting role in Indy. It's come here and compete, and then we're going to take the best of you or Anthony Richardson
yeah.
and put you out there on Sundays. And like I said, I know a lot of Bears fans. A lot of my friends that are Bears fans. I'm gonna tell them just to watch this clip, this 3-minute clip, because I know they don't watch this because they're Bears fans. They don't really care about the Colts. But I want them to watch just this clip, and don't make fun of me. I'm sorry that I'm saying this. I talked a lot of shit about Justin Fields, but I think he makes the most sense, and Logan agrees too. Makes the most sense for the Indianapolis Colts in regards to competition for Anthony Richardson because I can't. Sam Darnold, I'm sorry, he's going to get paid 40, 50 million somewhere and
Oh,
be
yeah.
average. It's the
Some team is
system.
going to give him the Kirk Cousins bag for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
it's hard to it's like you can't really draft. There's not good quarterback class this year, so you got to bring in someone. I wouldn't mind drafting Jackson Dart in the 4th, 5th round or something like that just to bring in some competition for AR, but or the Bean. The
The
Bean.
Bean.
I love him, man.
Speaking of
Jason Bean.
Chicago, the Bean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
speaking of Chicago,
that's
the
funny.
Bean. Jason Bean's fine. He got signed to another year. Did Sam
Yeah.
Ellinger get signed to another year? I missed that on
I'm
the.
not sure, but he's more of a third string guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a serious threat to be a solid backup in the NFL. I think he's more of
Yeah,
third string territory. But um,
yeah.
no, I couldn't agree more, man. I think Justin Fields makes a lot of sense, like you said. I think it would be interesting to see though if there are teams that would pay him a little bit more to come in and be the starter. I can think of a couple. Maybe the Giants, possibly.
I don't think so. I think, dude,
Maybe the Raiders. I could see. I
Raiders. I
could
think if they
definitely
land
see the
Ben
Raiders.
Johnson, I could
Yeah,
see them getting Justin
there's
Fields.
there's a couple quarterback needy
I
teams
think you're
that
missing
might
one. You're missing one.
overpay and reach.
You're missing one. The team that he's already on. I could see the Steelers move
That's
on from Russ.
true.
You know
You're
what I'm
so
saying?
right, bro.
So they're
Yeah,
probably
because
just
if the Steelers and if you look back on the Steelers, they don't really draft high in the first round for their quarterback. I think the last time they drafted a quarterback, even in the top 10, was Ben Roethlisberger.
I mean, they're going to be drafting at what, like 18,
Where
19,
when was Ben
20?
Roethlisberger drafted?
I
Do
don't
you
even
know?
know. No, I don't even know.
I'm
He
gonna
was
have to
after
do.
Manning, right? Was he after Manning?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, like,
2003,
what
4?
round was he drafted in? Was he a first round
Oh,
pick?
he might have been a first round pick. I think he was a first round pick.
Because I know the Steelers are notoriously not a high drafter of quarterback. Yeah,
He was a
he
first round
was the
pick, I'm pretty sure.
11th pick,
Yeah.
11th pick. So that's not like crazy high. I mean, hell, the Colts are drafting at 14 this year.
Yep.
So I could see it because the Steelers aren't really typically a team that is in contention for a top, 3
They keep
pick or
Justin
whatever to get
Fields.
a guy like that. Anyways, yeah.
Celian would be really happy. You hearing this, Celian? Shout out to you, but yeah, I think that would make the most sense for me. Like, I don't see him leaving the Steelers,
Okay.
to be
Well,
honest. But
let's say Fields stays right at the Steelers. Who are some other guys not named Sam Darnold that you can think of? Because I have one in
I
my mind as well. And I know you're not gonna like it. But he's been a veteran in the league.
are you gonna say Jameis?
No, you're gonna. I don't know if you're gonna like it,
I don't know if you're gonna like
but he
it, dude.
does kind of have a similar-ish play style.
Are you gonna say like a Trey Lance or some shit like that?
I'm talking about Danny motherfucking Dimes, my guy.
Oh no, no,
Here's the
no,
thing. Hear
no.
me out. I
He's
don't
not
think.
leaving the Vikings, bro. He's gonna be their backup once they lose Darnold. It'll be JJ and Danny, one and
Yeah,
two
you're
there.
right. Because freaking Kevin O'Connell is really smart, and so it makes sense.
We should give Joe Milton a call, even though he's never leaving. And I don't believe in Joe Milton at all. I think he just played backups
Yeah.
basically, but
Look,
give him a little
look. The
call.
bottom line is this: they need to bring in somebody, in my opinion, that the Colts, being them, the Colts need to bring in somebody that is going to actually compete with Anthony Richardson.
Yes.
That gives him enough fear that, hey, I could lose my job if I don't step up. And I don't think a rookie quarterback drafted in the second round, third round, fourth round, I don't know if that's a big enough of a scare for
It's
Anthony
not.
Richardson. Yeah.
It's not. Even though Anthony Richardson is 23 years old, he'll be like the same age if whoever the heck we
That's
draft,
what
if we
I'm
end up drafting a
saying. Yeah.
quarterback. Like, no. You got to bring in someone that's like young enough to still lead a franchise, but is good enough to compete with Anthony Richardson. And I think there's like one answer, dude. Like, especially like this season, I think there's one answer, and that answer is Justin Fields. I cannot think, like, I don't want Jameis. I'm sorry, as a leader,
They
he's
better make him
phenomenal, but
some
like
pretty freaking good offers then, like you said, because if he, I mean, the
they're gonna
Steelers
retain
might end
him,
up trying to
but
keep him. Yeah.
yeah, I think they will. Like, if they walk away from Justin Fields, I think that's the dumbest thing the Steelers could do because Russell Wilson has not been playing good ball, and he's like 30, 37, 38 years old.
Yeah, I think he's probably about donezo because he only signed a
It's
1-year deal. What? Oh
yeah.
no, Addy. Oh no, Addy Oberoi. I just
Oh
realized the
no.
Colts, their past does indicate that they could sign Russell Wilson. I will say that.
Oh no.
They might, dude. They might give it one more spin of the tires, see if he's got any tread left. I just
I mean, he'll
realized
be worth $1 million.
if
That's
he
it.
if he oh no. They could. They really could. We might have to say let Russ cook in Indy.
We've been talking about the wrong Steelers quarterback for the past 6 minutes.
I just realized, bro, that it would be probably more likely for this Colts franchise to go after a Russell
But
Wilson
listen,
than it would be a.
listen, Chris Ballard's different this season, okay? This is year 9. In year 9, he put his top hat on and he realized I need to do things differently to retain my job. It took him 9 years,
Yeah,
okay?
this is
So
his
he's gonna do
ninth and final life. He only
yes.
has one more
So
left.
you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna score big in free agency, and he's gonna bring in Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is gonna lead this team to a 6-11 record. Okay, you heard it right here, folks.
Woo!
I
No,
hope
I
not.
will say this
Please
though,
no Kirk.
real talk. If they did get Russell Wilson though, it would be kind of cool to see him just throw a couple moon balls up to
Yeah, it would be
Pittman.
nice.
That'd be fun. But
Yeah.
other than that, no,
No, thank you.
stay away,
No, thank you.
stay away.
There is one more thing I wanted to talk about real quick. He 3 more things. And I'll kind of put them all together. They kind of go together. One, I really like that Chris Ballard agreed with Buckner's comments And
Yeah,
that
that was good. Yeah.
I think Buckner holds a special place, knowing as a leader that's been here for a while, who knows winning football from the Niners, played in the Super Bowl. I'm really happy Chris Ballard is going to be listening to him because I think that's a good person to listen to. It's a captain that's infuriated and frustrated with how the last couple of years have gone. So I like that. I also like that Chris Ballard acknowledged that he acknowledged Pat McAfee's comments and saying I agree with most of it too. That's kind of cool to hear, and I hope
That
that
was really cool to
men's
hear. Yeah. That was
yeah,
really cool.
hope that mends a little bit of relationship because we need Pat McAfee as Colts fans to talk about the Colts because no one else ever does. So it's good to have him
Yeah.
around, and it's good to acknowledge that yeah, like this shit's been going on. It's been bad internally. And then the third thing he acknowledged Zaire's pod. He didn't talk much into it, but he did say that hey, Zaire and I
He
had
said we had our
conversations.
own conversations on the side. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he said at the end of the day, like distractions lead to losing football. And so it was cool to see like that was talked about. He ended up calling someone chicken shit for talking anonymous. Who EJ Speed, right? It's got to be EJ.
It's gotta
Who
be
else is
EJ.
it?
I've seen on the old X, I'm gonna shout out our boy Scotty Colt.
Oh,
Scony, not sure.
yeah, I was gonna
I'm
say
gonna
you
shout
said
him
it
out
the
one more time
first
and
time.
say he had an interaction with him if you go to his Twitter
I saw.
where it seems like EJ Speed might be a little bit more of a shady character
He's a
than
little diva.
than what we
EJ, you
thought.
diva.
You got a little diva action, so but it could be him. I could see him quoting that
Yeah.
because of his previous actions, but who knows? We really don't know at the end of the day who it was, but yeah.
What if it was like Dallas Flowers? Like it's just like, bro got memed out in a picture and then just like
Do
said
you
this.
think it was somebody that is currently still on the roster that
I
said
think
that?
so. I really
Okay.
do think it's someone that's on the roster right now. And I
Who other than
really can't
EJ
think.
Speed would say that?
I don't know. I don't think it can be anyone on the offensive side of the ball. I really don't think it can be anyone. It's got to be a veteran that's lost the last couple of years. I don't think it's on the offensive side. I think it's on the defensive side of the ball. And the only two people that come to mind are like the linebacker core. Like I don't think
It's
Grover Stewart would say that.
it's gotta be EJ, bro. It's
It's
gotta.
gotta be
I don't
EJ,
think it
dude.
would be Zaire because Zaire wouldn't say he would put his name on it.
And he just got paid. Like why would he
He
say
would
like
put
this
his
is your
name on
boss?
it.
Yeah, he'd put his name
Zaire
on
would
it
put
too.
his name on it because he will talk. Like he will
He'll
talk.
talk. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a savage. I'm a
That's
fucking savage.
that's crazy, dude, to think about that. He called one of his current players a chicken shit. Oh my
That guy's
god.
chicken shit.
That is so wild, bro.
Well, I mean, he knows exactly who it is, and he knows that he's not bringing him back. So, like, if he wants to call him chicken shit, we'll know. Whoever doesn't get brought back on the
Wow.
defense, it's got to be one of them.
Just imagine, bro, that it is somebody like how I will say this as a Colts fan to wrap up with a bow.
Yeah.
As a Colts fan right now, it is just a wild time. I heard Kevin Bowen talk about it on the radio show today, 1070 fan. Like, it is a wild time to be a Colts fan.
really
It
is.
really is. Like, there is some real crazy shit happening. You got GMs calling current players chicken shit. You got head coaches saying we're close, and then the next couple days, the GM saying we're not close at all.
Yeah.
You got you got the owner going into the locker room at the end of the game and saying, "Well, at least we're 1-0 in 2025, guys. We're 1-0 in
No.
2025." Haha, dad jokes. It's like,
At least he looked a lot better than the first video we saw him out
yeah,
of the tunnel. He looks better in that second video at
but
least. But
you gotta just sit back as a Colts fan and just say, "Holy hell!" Like it
yeah.
is a wild time to be a Colts fan right now. It
Yeah.
really is. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of moving parts, and I think I agree with you. There's a lot to work on, man, and a lot of
Oh
things
yeah.
got to go right to get to move this thing back in the right direction.
Yeah.
It'll
I
be interesting to
100%
see.
agree.
Yeah.
I will say this motherfucker Chris Ballard just kind of reeled me back in. This fucking guy,
Hey,
bro, was so out on
he's
him.
got one shot. Did not miss your chance to blow,
And
dude. I mean, hey,
this opportunity comes once in a
this
lifetime.
no,
And
unless you're Chris Ballard, then it comes 9 times
9
in a
times.
lifetime.
Yeah, is he a cat? He's a cat, bro. He's got 9 lives. I will say though, Colts fans, it does better for us to root for Chris Ballard, even though we don't
Yes.
want to. We want him gone because at the end of the day, he's our GM.
Yeah.
We want our GM to do well because that means the team does well, the head coach
Yeah.
does well, etc. Success.
I will I will declare publicly because I put out a tweet last week in frustration, and I said that
You put out a couple of tweets.
I will
Oh,
not
okay.
spend a dime on this team until Chris Ballard is fired. I will say that's under the pretense that Chris Ballard does not deliver Indianapolis an AFC South championship and a playoff appearance. If one of those two things does not happen, I still will stand by that I'm not going to a Colts game. That's what I mean by not spending
No,
a
no,
dime
no,
on
no,
them.
no, no, no. It's got to start in April, Logan. It's got to start with if you don't draft Tyler Warren, then we don't.
We can add that. I'll just keep adding that to the thread. But no, real talk.
Yeah.
Like I really am not. I do not have plans for next season to go in person to a Colts game until they show to me that they are a team that's worth it for me to go and spend my hard-earned money to go in the building and cheer for this team. I will always support them. I will always watch them. I will always talk about them. I have tons of Colts memorabilia over the years, but until that team says, "Hey, we're looking to actually get better and put together a winner," why am I going, why am I showing up to the stadium and like spending money
Yeah.
that I worked my ass off for that you guys clearly don't give a shit about because you're not trying.
Yeah.
So, but I will
So
say I will retract that and I will gladly go to a game if Chris Ballard gets us to the playoffs. I will
so 2026.
literally
You'd go to a
immediately
game.
go to the next game if Chris
Week
Ballard
1,
gets us to the
2026.
playoffs.
You'll be there.
Yes.
So you're saying that if I come all the way from Chicago to watch a game next season,
Oh God.
you're saying I should come say hi to you, drop off some gifts, meet your girlfriend, meet you, say hi, go to the game, and come back to your place and drink a couple of beers and then head out? Like
Listen to
that's
me.
the move.
If someone wants to buy me a ticket to go to the Colts game, that's a way around it. But
Hey, Colts, sponsor us.
yeah,
Please.
because I'm not going to spend money on this
That's
team.
fair.
Yeah.
So I can call your girlfriend real quick and just say, hey.
Yes.
So I know
Hey,
he's
can you
not
buy
spending
a
money.
ticket? Can you buy a ticket for him? I just
Can you buy a
personally,
ticket for Logan?
I'm not. I have a principle. I gotta stick by my word.
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah,
be
yeah.
impeccable with my word. And I tweeted it out, so I'm gonna stick to it.
I don't know Logan's girlfriend if
Yeah.
you know this, but like Logan has a series of tweets out right now, and he said he's not going to spend the money on the Colts. So if you could please gladly just hand me your credit card, so I can just input the information, that'd be great.
And hey, I'm down to go to some away games. Okay, I'm down
Yeah.
to go to some away games. I'm just not gonna directly show
No, we're
up
going-
and
we're going to
financially
Steelers.
support the Colts that are not supporting the fan base by making forward movements. And I truly believe that it's not going to be accomplished until Ballard's gone. But hey, like you said, I will definitely 100% root for it. And as soon as he brings in a division title and a playoff appearance,
The motherfucker.
Pro
I'm
Fan
back
Logan
in,
will
baby.
be 100 section right there near the field at that first game. Hopefully
Fan of the
playoff
year.
game. Hopefully playoff game. That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
You could go to the first playoff game in 2025
Exactly. So
or in 2026. So
that's my resolution.
I like it. I like it. Well, Colts fans, we're going to wrap it up there. I hope you enjoyed our assessment of the Chris Ballard episode, debriefing his end-of-year presser. I'm glad you're able to sit down, listen. If you're watching, glad you're able to watch with us. Make sure to hit that subscribe and like button on everything. YouTube, we post the entire clip on YouTube. Yes. And then TikTok. I know TikTok might be going away, but while it's still here, just give us a like, give us a follow. We're growing pretty rapidly on there.
Yes.
Obviously, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Hit that like and subscribe, and then we'll be here next week to talk maybe some offense, maybe some defense.
We're gonna roll with the offense next week, guys. We're gonna do an offensive overview and just go over a season review for our Indianapolis Colts.
Yes, sir. Peace out, Colts fans.